Okay, before we begin officially, I know a lot of you are here from Ryan Park's Ethics and Values class. We have 2 clipboards that we're sending around so that you can sign in. So if it doesn't come by you, please hunt it down or ask me and I'll help you. Okay, we want to make sure that you give credit for being here. And then the way the Q&A is going to work, we have a microphone because we're live streaming and recording. So if you just raise your hand and wait for the microphone to come around, that would be great. So,
okay. Hey everyone, thanks for coming out. My name is Dr. Brian Waite. I am a professor over in the School of Education. I'm also the director of the Global Intercultural Program on campus, known as the GI. I'm also on the board of the Center for the Study of Ethics committee, and we helped to put on this week, and it's a fantastic week. I'm so glad that there's so many of you here. Brian Birch and his team do an amazing job putting this on every year, and our campus is better for it. So thank you to Brian and all of his team for inviting us and for putting this on. So we are going to represent the School of Education today during this session. I will be the moderator, and I have 2 professors from the School of Education, one from the Elementary Education Department and the other from the Secondary Education Department. I'll do a quick intro to them, and then we'll get going. So the topic, as you can see, how can AI, and have you heard of AI? Is everybody familiar with this? Okay, so it's been around a little bit, kind of making some noise. So we were asked to kind of talk a little bit about what impact AI has on student learning, and that's where we're going with this. So we have Dr. Adam Orgulu, who from the Elementary Education Department. He is both of our faculty here today are relatively new to UVU, but he teaches our educational psychology classes. He has a PhD in gifted education from Istanbul University in Turkey, a master's in progress, I believe still, Adam, in educational statistics, another master's in gifted education, and then a bachelor's in sociology, and another in psychology and psychological counseling and guidance. His research interests deal with gifted and talented students, education of parents and gifted children, creativity, special education, educational psychology, research methods. We have Dr. Laurel Diaz as well from the the Department of Secondary Education, who teaches mostly our educational equity classes, formerly known as instructional technology. So helping to prepare tomorrow's teachers to effectively use technology in their K-12 classrooms. Laurel has a PhD from the University of Utah in educational psychology, learning, and cognition, a master's degree from the U as well, and then 2 bachelors, one from Utah State and the other from SUU. And she has a lot of different research interests, including AI, developing equity-based practices for pre-service teachers, and a lot of other emotional and professional preparations for pre-service teachers. And so I'm excited to have them here to kind of lead us through this discussion. I know we have a lot of School of Education folks in here today. This might be a little more relevant there, but we're going to talk, I think, enough general how AI is affecting student learning that I think we'll all benefit from this discussion. So the first question, and we're going to kind of do this kind of bounce back and forth between the 2 of them. I'm going to ask both of them this first question and let them fight it out to see how they want to answer. What are the benefits of AI for student learning?
Okay, I'm going to start with this one. And I know across campus, a lot of different professors have different ideas and opinions about AI and how they want to use it or allow it in their classrooms. But in the School of Education, we're very pro-AI, that it can support student learning, and I'm just going to highlight a couple of ways that you can do that. The first one is individualized learning. There is so much opportunity using AI where you can have students share their interests with an AI chatbot, and the AI will automatically make connections to the content that the teacher's teaching that's relevant to students' interests, right? And we all know that when we are interested in what we're learning, we care about it, then we learn better. So that's a huge one. You can also do individualized learning based on student need. So, everybody comes in with different background knowledge to the educational setting, and if you can kind of tap into where different students are at and, meet them where they're at and grow from there, there's a lot of potential for that with AI. The next idea about that is time management. So this might be a little bit more of a benefit for teachers than for students, but students are happier when teachers are happier. So AI can save a lot of time. When you have those really fun lessons where teachers are super creative and they get you out of your seats, or you're playing a game, or it's just different than a lecture. So that takes a lot of work on the teacher's part to prepare and design those kinds of lessons. But AI can be a tool where the teacher can brainstorm with AI. They can, ask for ideas to make the lesson more engaging. And, this teacher still has to put work into it, but it's definitely a tool to save time to help make more engaging, more exciting instruction for students.
So, any more, educators, educators need some time to check assignments and give some feedback. Even giving instant feedback is above and beyond human power. It's not easy to give instant impact, but on the other hand, AI provides instant feedback to students, helping them understand their mistakes and correct those mistakes. Even I'm sure you use Grammarly. Grammarly would give you instant feedback, and you can easily correct your mistakes. And the other thing I want to mention is, in this era, data is power. But having or holding raw data is not enough. You need to be able to make use of that data. And relatively, educators are able to collect very good large amount of data about students' progress, students' performance, or their own progress or performance. But again, since they don't have time, and also sometimes to analyze that huge data, you need to know some kind of statistical background. You need to have some statistical background. And most of teachers may not have that background, so with the help of AI, educators would or could easily analyze that huge data, and they can take advantage of that analysis to check the progress of their students' learning. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I think that one of the main concerns that we have with AI are the ethical issues, and that is what I believe ties really nicely into this week and the whole conference of the Ethics Center. And so, Dr. Diaz, this is to you. What are the major ethical concerns around AI in education, and how can you kind of help us navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. So data privacy is probably the #1 concern, especially in education. As Adam just shared, there's huge advantages to be able to have AI analyzing data, but there are data privacy laws like FERPA, some of you may have heard of, that really, they need to protect student data. So you can't just, put in students' names, ages, grades into AI and think that that's okay. Because the way AI works is it's training itself on the data that's being put in. So, you lose access. Essentially, you're sharing that data publicly when you're putting in private student data. So that's one of the bigger ethical concerns in education is, how can we utilize AI in these ways to help us without sharing personally identifiable student information? I like this quote, when you use AI, you pay with your data, right? I think a lot of you have probably tried it. You can log in, free of charge, but that's because they're not collecting money. They're benefiting off of you by the data you put in and the way you're interacting with the AI. So that's something to be aware of as you use AI. One thing that a lot of companies have started doing is something called a walled garden. So what that is a closed environment that, you know, limits within an institution. They'll say, okay, we'll make a contract, like for UVU, we have access to Microsoft Copilot as faculty. And they've said, okay, if you log in as a UVU faculty, then we're not going to be training our larger, you know, public models with the way UVU faculty are using it. So it's called a walled garden. It's kind of a more private way within an institution that you can protect student data. But even then, I wouldn't say it's 100% reliable when it comes to ethics. You know, there's still the risk or chance that somebody else can get a hold of that data. The second issue, and along with that, being transparent, letting people know who are using AI, who's going to see that data, right? If you're putting in data that a student might benefit from, like, let them know, okay, hey, you know, we're using AI in this class. I designed my lesson with AI. There's information in here from AI, and being transparent about how you're using it. Okay, the next one is bias and hallucinations. This is maybe one of the bigger ethical concerns you might have heard of before. AI is really a sophisticated guesser. There's, you know, a lot of information it's sifting through and trying to give you the most relevant. It's trained with human biases because the information the AI is creating responses with is essentially originated from humans with their own kind of lenses and the ways they view the world and the way they interact in the world. AI can be unpredictable. Every time you put the same prompt into AI, you can get a different response. Okay, so you need to be careful in making sure you're vetting, is this reliable? What are the sources that AI used to be able to come up with this? And it can be literal. AI doesn't have real world knowledge, right? It just depends on knowledge, publicly available information that's out there. It doesn't necessarily understand language or cultural nuances that human beings understand. Our third major ethical concern we're going to talk about is intellectual property. So you've maybe heard of copyright laws before, and the big question is, how does AI, if somebody creates something using AI, can they copyright it, right? Is it available? They created it, right? They put it in the prompt. And I actually just recently was in a session with a copyright lawyer who does a lot of work nationally about AI, and he said the most up-to-date update for copyright law is that you can get something copyrighted if you adjust it or adapt it or contribute something that is your own, right? Using your own human creativity. So you can't just create something on AI and say, hey, this is mine, it's copyrighted. It needs to have human creativity to be able to receive a copyright or a patent. And so that's kind of the nuance that, you know, legal teams are still working out. But in general, right now, the idea is you need to have some sort of human contribution for it to be copyrighted. And then on the flip side, we're thinking about, oh, not yet. Okay, we're thinking about, well, what if you upload, you know, a full textbook? There's different programs like Google LM. You can upload a textbook and then type a prompt, and it'll dig through that information to give you answers and responses. But if that textbook has a copyright, can you use it that way? Are you kind of, you know, breaking intellectual property laws? And the good thing is, under the educational fair use laws, if you're using it just as a, you know, student for your own learning purposes, you're protected to be able to use different texts and things, as long as, you know, you get them from, you know, the same way you'd use them for a class studying on your own. The problem is when you start benefiting or selling or making money off of anything that you've used other people's intellectual property for. So that's kind of a quick, easy way to remember. You can use these kinds of, you know, copyrighted materials to study, even using AI different programs, but make sure you're not using them to benefit or make money or, you know, sell anything from that. And this slide is just a few ideas when you're using AI, how you can write your prompts in a way that can mitigate some of these ethical concerns. So, you know, if you want them to prompt the AI and say something like, don't request or include any personal information, right? And then hopefully it's a hopefully, right? Not a guarantee, but you can kind of guide the AI not to produce anything that will have really ethical problems for your responses.
I can imagine that some of you are having questions as we go. We will open it up for Q&A at the end, so please take note if there's a particular slide or topic that you want to come back to. I can always go back in the slideshow to wherever you would like to discuss further once we get done. This next question I'm going to direct to Dr. Arghulu, and it's an interesting one to me. What is the impact of AI on creativity? And one of the reasons is, so I teach, one of the classes I teach is multicultural education. I see some of my students out here, and recently we were having a discussion. So I have an assignment where I have them do a deep dive into their own personal culture, who they are, where they come from, why they have the perspectives that they do. And I kind of brought up AI, or someone in the class did, and said, I don't think AI is going to work for this assignment. We kind of laughed because it would be difficult to take AI to create your life and your story and why you have the perspectives that you do. But I do think this is a super important question. Someone very close to me was saying just the other day, I use ChatGPT all the time. And that is not something I am comfortable with. I had to ask her a little bit more, like how she uses it. And so I think we are using this in different ways now, and I think the creativity is a super important question, because at what point do we lose our creativity when we're going this route?
Thank you. So I've been studying creativity for a long time. Even still, I don't know what creativity is, but I'm gonna explain it to you first. So first of all, I want to touch upon the creativity crisis first, and I will dive into the impact of AI on creativity. Have you heard of the Flynn effect? Do you know what Flynn effect is? Basically, Flynn effect says that we are getting smarter over the past century. So comparing to our ancestors, we have more intelligence than our ancestors. This is called Flynn effect. So our average IQ is increasing over past century. And you can list many reasons. I would say, for instance, nutrition, education would help us with that increase, that constant, consistent rise in our IQ. On the other hand, there's another concept I want to mention, which is creativity crisis. And according to creativity crisis, our creativity level is decreasing. There is a decline in our creativity level comparing to 90s. Kim, another scholar in creativity, did a huge analysis and came up with this result. So, and you can also list many reasons why our creativity is decreasing or dropping, but maybe technology or artificial intelligence would be one of the reasons. First of all, yes, we can use AI with our creativity. We can benefit from AI to be more creative, but over-reliance on AI would contribute to this decline in creativity. So for benefits, I would say, for instance, generating ideas or suggesting some improvements could save us more time to deal with complex issues in the process of that creativity. So we would save some time. And the other one is like, AI could be a good source of inspiration. Again, looking at what AI gives us, you would get inspired by those ideas. However, if we heavily rely on AI to generate ideas or complete some tasks, we would lose our motivation and being able to get engaged in that creativity process. How so? Have you heard of the flow concept, flow experience? basically where, as humans, we lose the track of our time. We love working on that task or that work. And when we experience that flow effect or flow experience, then we are motivated and when we are challenged. When we lose the feeling of challenge, we would get bored easily. So again, if we rely on AI heavily, eventually we would get unmotivated because AI would do whatever we want easily. And the other thing I want to mention, what is creativity? Simply, creativity is producing new ideas, but producing new ideas is not enough. Also, your ideas should be useful. So simply, creativity requires coming up with new and useful ideas. But AI lacks of human consciousness, human emotions, and social experiences, which are critical for creativity. So, another thing, to produce useful ideas, we need our unique social experiences or wisdom. Without wisdom, we cannot come up with useful ideas, which AI lacks. And the other thing, what's the difference between originality and authenticity? Basically, originality refers something new, something novel, something unique. On the other hand, authenticity requires less about something is new or not. So basically, AI could create authentic things, not original things, using someone's data. And AI often operates by analyzing patterns in those huge large data sets. So if you rely on AI heavily, eventually AI would give you some kind of standardized responses, which lack, again, human unique creativity. And also, I want to talk about this one. Right? Bloom's taxonomy. We use Bloom's taxonomy in education a lot. And when you look at it, the top is creativity, being able to create something. Since this taxonomy is hierarchy and the highest level is creativity, that means then apply, analyze, evaluate, and then we will be able to create. So if we lack these lower order thinking skills, eventually we cannot create. Again, if we rely on AI to remember, to analyze, to understand, then as a human being, we cannot create. I'm not saying we shouldn't use AI. Yes, we should use AI for our creativity, but again, to some extent. At the end of the day, as a human being, we should be able to create, not AI. AI cannot create. And lastly, as Laurel mentioned, if we use AI to create something, and AI produces those patterns or standardized responses using other ideas, then we need to question about kind of copyright or whose that idea is. Not mine. AI just gave me that idea. So again, at this point, we may encounter some complex ethical issues regarding copyright, regarding authorship or ownership. Who owns that idea? These are some kind of brief impact of AI on creativity. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So when I used Chat GPT the other day to run a soccer practice, that was not being creative on my part, I guess, right? But that's how I use it. So, all right, so I'm going to actually open this to both of you, and whichever would like to start. How are cognitive skills impacted by AI?
I'll add on to kind of what Adam was just talking about related to Bloom's taxonomy. My students have seen this because I love this graphic that Oregon State University made. But it's the idea that, you know, within Bloom's taxonomy, now as educators, we need to consider, okay, what kind of skills does AI have? And what kind of skills do we as humans have, right? And how do we design our instruction and, you know, learning activities for students so that they can make sure they're utilizing and developing skills that are uniquely human, right? Because the world, now that AI is available, why wouldn't we use it to our advantage, right? So I'm gonna do a slow reveal. First, we're gonna look at AI capabilities. It's probably really small, sorry if you can't see everything up there. But it just talks about, you know, AI can recall factual information. AI can describe a concept to you. AI can suggest, you know, 3 different situations related to a topic. So these are all things that now, you know, it's great, just plug it into AI and AI will produce this kind of content for you. So when we're, you know, educating other people, we need to think about what are the uniquely human skills, okay? So what is it in each level of this Bloom's taxonomy that we want to work on as humans, right? You as students, what are skills that will benefit you in your future careers that you can utilize even if AI is available? So a lot of it has to do with things you can talk about, like our critical consciousness, right? Being able to apply it with, you know, more cultural nuance or these kind of ethical dilemmas, like things that as humans we can think critically about. AI isn't as good at doing that. So creating content, sure, but you know, with creativity, you might have AI suggest a few options, but then you need to use your human brain to think about, okay, which one realistically makes the most sense for the setting, right? If I'm a classroom teacher, I might say, hey, give me 3 ideas for making this lesson more engaging. And then I'm gonna look through those 3 ideas and think, well, that one might not be realistic. I don't have, you know, 4 hours to teach this lesson, or this one I might need to adapt to be able to include all 30 of my students. So those are the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about. Even if it's how you're writing prompts in AI, you as a human need to be thinking critically and kind of using it in a way that's augmenting your cognitive skills.
And you know, AI for sure will change the way we think or the layout of our mind, for sure. And you know, some basic cognitive skills you would list, like decision making, problem solving, or information storage, or memory, or even attention. Even these are some components of intelligence. And yes, we can use AI for our decision-making skills, or to make some decisions, to solve our problems, or to remember something. But again, over-reliance on AI for decision-making, problem-solving, or memory can reduce the need of our brain power, mind power, potentially diminishing our mind capacity. So, you know, basic principle, right, of our mind. If you don't use it, you're gonna lose it for sure. Just like our muscles. As you use your brain, your mind, you're gonna have better decision-making skills. You're gonna have better cognitive skills, including problem solving, memory, attention. So, again, over-reliance would cause another problem in the future. And maybe that problem would be the reverse Flynn effect. That means, in the future, we might have the intelligence crisis. That means humanity would get dumber if we do not practice our cognitive skills, basic cognitive skills like decision-making skills, problem-solving skills. Again, don't get me wrong. We could use AI for these cognitive skills, but it should be at the optimum level to avoid the intelligence crisis or getting dumber. And also, I'm gonna mention this one. This is pretty cool. This is something that AI or computer cannot do, perception. You know this bothering thing, right? We would see these things when we are getting into a website asking like, prove that you are human. You know why? Because perception belongs to human. What is perception? Perception is basically giving a meaning to an input that we take in. And when we are giving meaning to those inputs that we are taking in, is unique to ourselves. We use many, many things to perceive something, to interpret something. Our subjective experiences, our cultural experiences, our values. So, AI cannot perceive as well as humans could. Even in the future, maybe AI could solve this issue, this problem. But again, my point is that AI cannot reach the level of humanity perception. Because perception belongs to humanity. And for instance, just came to mind one example how complicated perception is. Like, if you get a message, text message from your best friend, how likely will you able to understand that message is sarcastic or not? From your best friend, just text message, to perceive it is a sarcasm or not. Any guess? Any percentages? According to study results, just 50%. Perceiving your best friend's text message, if it is sarcasm or not. But when you hear that written statement verbally, then your probability would get really, really high. Just one example how perception could be really, really complicated, how complicated it would be. Even now, if we rely on AI to perceive inputs in the world, we would fail over there because perception belongs to humanity. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, thank you both for that. So now understanding better the impact of AI, can you, Adam, expand a little bit more on the cognitive benefits?
So, as I said, I mean, AI will change the way we think. So, how AI could impact our cognitive skills positively? One thing I would mention, our metacognition skills. For sure, using AI would develop our metacognition. So what is metacognition? Basically, simply, metacognition is being aware of how we think, the way we think. So, thinking about our own thinking. To be able to use AI, we should be able to be aware of how we think, what I need. So, think about asking a question to a ChatGPT. First, you need to figure out how or what question you need to ask. In what ways? You know, the way you ask would make a huge difference on ChatGPT. And metacognition involves planning, monitoring, and evaluating skills. So take monitoring skills. Like instantly, we would get feedback from AI, right? Then we are like, take Grammarly. And we could evaluate how we are doing on that specific task. Getting some feedback from AI. Or think about evaluating skills. again, AI would give us instant feedback, and we would evaluate how was our thinking or the way we solved that problem. So to me, Brian, for sure, metacognitive skills will be required more in the future, and this way humanity will develop their metacognitive skills or should develop their metacognitive skills to use AI effectively.
Appreciate that. For our last question, Laurel, I'll direct this to you. Adam kind of alluded to this already and talked a little bit about the reliance on AI. Can you speak to how we can prevent reliance on AI in education?
Yeah, so I really want to make sure we have time for all your questions. You've been wonderful listening to us. So I'm just going to make one quick point about it's an analogy, okay? So go with me on this, of using AI. So we can think about AI as Iron Man instead of the Terminator. So if you're familiar with either of these, you know that the Terminator, he becomes part human, part man, right? So like the machine kind of takes over who the Terminator is. Whereas Iron Man, it's a suit that, he can step in and out of, and it essentially enhances or augments, the way he can live in the world or do things in the world. So for this analogy, I'm just thinking, rather than completely rely on AI and have it be, making your decisions, doing things for you, use it to enhance the skills you already have, right? Use it as a way to, come up with better ideas, and you critically think about what they are. Take what's uniquely human within you and use AI to augment that, right? To extend your capabilities, extend your ideas, your creativity, as a brainstorming tool or, a feedback loop. But always make sure, as a human, you're making the last decision. I think that's the best way to really avoid a lot of these ethical issues is don't, copy paste straight from an AI chatbot, but really as a human, look at what the AI is producing, and then you make a decision, is this reasonable? Is this reliable? Is this the best option for, the situation or setting I'm trying to make a difference in? So it's a great place to start, but not necessarily a great place to finish.
All right, well, thank you so much for that. Can we give them a round of applause first? So we have about 10 minutes to open up for audience questions. I hope that you have some. If there was a particular slide that you wanted me to go back to because you wanted to build your question off of that, let me know. I can just flip through and we can find it. So just raise your hand and there's a few mics that will be brought to you.
How would you recommend, as a lot of us here are the education department, that we better protect our students if we do choose to utilize AI in the classroom?
Yeah, I can take that. Like I mentioned, that's a huge concern with data privacy, and especially if you're using it with students in a classroom, like you don't have control over the information they themselves are entering into the chatbot. Like somebody shared a scenario recently with me that a student was, talking with the AI and sharing their struggles about, with mental health, and they felt depressed, and that's information that as a teacher or medical professional you would not be putting into a chatbot, but it was a grade school student. And so I think as a teacher, you need to be having conversations with your students and teaching them, hey, these are things that are not okay to share while you're using, an AI chatbot. So set up expectations just like you do with other things in your classroom. And the second part of it is don't use just any, AI program in your classroom. Like I talked about earlier, there are walled gardens, which, a company like there's School AI or Skillstruck, and they're making contracts with school districts to be able to have data privacy agreements in place so that, any data that is used or, put into it is not training their systems. And so, at a state and district level, there's a lot of work going on to put these in place. So I would only ever use, apps or programs that have been approved by your school district.
Also, adding more to that, you know, AI is relatively new. It's not new, but relatively new. So as future educators, we need to get educated first. If we know how to use it effectively and efficiently, like or not, you're gonna model your students. The way you use artificial intelligence, that's another thing to get our students ready for future.
Hey, so I just had a question about what you think would happen in the future for a student who's wanting to go into a job that's very dependent on creativity, something like that, like woodworking or an author or a movie director, what the future of AI for that would be looking like for them going into a career.
That's really a good question. I've been thinking about that question as well. And you know, maybe creativity would evolve to co-creativity, where we are gonna use AI to create something. Because it's my personal opinion, in the future, we're gonna get addicted to AI. For some reason, we're gonna use it. And we're gonna use it for our creativity, so we need to turn creativity into co-creativity. Like mentioning, yes, I use AI, and AI inspired me with this question or with this idea. So in the future, I guess new concept will be co-creativity, using AI to create something. But creativity crisis is real.
I have a question about the privacy concerns as well. When you were talking about it, I think I understood what the walled garden stuff was, but I was curious because it sounded like there was still some room for problems. And I just think, you know, working in education, if I were to provide all of the benefits that AI is you know, going to provide to a class, and I proposed this as a plan, maybe something I was going to do, and then I was like, but there's a small chance it could violate FERPA, like, that would be shut down immediately. And so I wonder if you think there is any sort of double standard there, or what standard is AI being held to, and is it less than the standard that we are currently holding administrators through to?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think to clarify, so I think there's a difference between companies. So I'm going to use School AI as an example because they have, you know, utilized AI technology to, you know, kind of create a platform for teachers to do school-related things with AI. And they have a version that you can go to their website and log in and use, you know, for free. And so for that, like, yeah, it will help you with your teaching, but they're getting any information you're putting in is training their AI to be able to produce different content. Whereas teachers, like in Jordan School District up in Salt Lake, that district has contracted with School AI and come up with a separate data privacy agreement that is more protected, right? So they, because of the additional kind of restrictions they've agreed with School AI to put in place to protect data, they are able to use it with their teachers in different ways and more safely in their schools. So that's a little bit what I was referring to earlier. You know, as a teacher in public education, you don't just want to go log on because it's freely available online, but you're going to want to go, you know, through the proper channels that have put these contracts and data privacy agreements in place. Hopefully that was helpful.
So over the course of this panel, we learned that one of our main defenses against AI is to lean on the things that humans can do and that AI cannot. However, there are a few schools or subject matters that are inherently more computer-like, such as STEM, math, computer science, where we have to teach the students computational thinking, which is very adjacent to what the AI is capable of, and the AI has shown that it can complete those assignments with a very high confidence rate. How would you recommend that I, as a computer science teacher, protect my students from undermining themselves and removing their learning by going straight to the solution?
So, as Laura mentioned, AI is a good starting point, but not the finishing point. So, we need to mention that human will, or right now, humans are, or humans will be better than AI in the future as well. So we need to put the period as humans. Yes, we can utilize AI, but at the end of the day, as humans, we are the one who's gonna make the decision. We are the one who's gonna solve the problem. I guess that would help our students or ourselves to differentiate ourselves from AI.
Yeah, and I think what I would add is the idea of focusing more on the process than the outcome, right? So if you're teaching a computational thinking process to your students, maybe break it down step by step and have them engage in each step of the process rather than, oh look, yeah, AI can do that whole process for you, but if the goal is to teach them each step along the way, you might need to kind of chunk your learning objectives and activities into smaller chunks so that students are seeing each step as it goes through. And I know you can do that. I saw your AI student assignment that was very similar to what I just described.
So as I understand it right now, AI looks at the data we give it, and then it quantifies it and creates relationships between other sets of data, correct? And so in that sense, as it looks at the other data, what happens to the privacy laws of, because obviously all the data it pulls is from the internet, but there's a lot of things that are illegally on the internet. How do we allow for like that kind of trespass of, what is the, trespass of like kind of free thinking those kinds of laws?
Let me just add something and you can answer that question. Now, AI or ChatGPT could generate as well. So using the available data, they are able to analyze, evaluate, and come up with new responses as well. So not just using or combining ideas, or right now they are able to come up with different ideas as well. Back to your question.
Yeah, and I don't have a perfect answer for this because that is why it's an ethical concern, right? The intellectual property of people that has been illegally shared. You know, you as an individual can try to mitigate that by looking at, okay, when you put a prompt into ChatGPT, say, I want to know like what sources you are using. And some, you know, chatbots have automatically just started doing this where they'll cite where they pulled that particular information. So then you can go look and say, okay, is this information that is freely publicly available? You know, is it copyrighted? Is it pulling from sources that it shouldn't? But that's definitely, I think, on us as humans to be able to sift through and find, you know, what kind of sources is our information coming from. Great question.
How, as educators, can we hold our students accountable with their AI use? Make sure that they're doing this co-creativity thing. Are there programs or ideas we can use to differentiate AI work with our student collaboration with it?
So I'm sure even right now, people also produce counter AI tools, like to detect AI productions. And in the future, yes, we are going to have like virus and antivirus tools. And in the future, we are going to have AI tools and anti-AI tools to detect those things. But again, as we said earlier, I guess we need to educate our students how to use AI effectively and efficiently. And again, banning it or blocking is not the correct way. Just that would be a waste of time. But it's like, you know, if you remember, maybe you guys don't remember, but back in days when Google came up or cell phones came up, that was a huge problem. And now humanity learned how to use, still we have problems, but now we are better at using cell phones, I don't know, effectively and efficiently. So again, to me, like, it's a process of education.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that it's on you as a teacher to be more creative. Like for me in my classes, a lot of my, you know, assignments that I used to have students, you know, write a response to this. I've now encouraged record a video responding to this, just because then I know they aren't, using ChatGPT and they're, talking and sharing with their own words. So just trying to think of ways you can.
Well, right,
that.
in the future, they would have those tools, AI tools, to create videos.
That's true, but I think it's more work.
Yeah, I mean,
than
right
it's
now,
work.
it would work, but in the future, also AI could create your own videos.
It's true.
All right, everyone, we are at time. I want to thank our panelists, and I also want to thank you for coming out and engaging in this important topic. Thank you.